Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our regular meeting of council. I'll start with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we live, work, and gather on the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin people, specifically the Temiskaming First Nation. We recognize the presence of the Temiskaming First Nation in our community since time immemorial and honor their long history of welcoming many nations to this beautiful territory and uphold and uplift their voice and values. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Roll call, please.
Good evening, Your Worship. All members of council are present, and I'll note that Councillor Whalen is joining virtually this evening.
Awesome, thank you. And maybe before we start the meeting, I have the privilege of presenting an exemplary service, a 30-year service award. I have a little bar strip here for Steve Langford. Steve, just on behalf of Mayor and Council and our community, I just want to say thank you so much for the contributions that you've done, to our community. I know this is 30 years, you're almost at 35, and we thought we would start this at the start of the meeting just so that, if you did get a little tired and stuff, you'd be able to go before the meeting was over. So, Steve, if you want to come up.
Anybody taking a picture? Yeah. Hello.
Did establish just before this started that Jeff was holding. Thank you very much.
That is a true story. Okay, is there any review or revisions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none, takes us to item 5, the approval of the agenda. I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved that City Council approves the agenda as printed. Can I get a mover, please? It's Councillor Graydon. Second by Councillor Pelche-Living. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. Is there any disclosure or pecuniary interest in general nature? Seeing none. Takes us to item 7. We don't have any public meetings pursuant to the Planning Act, Municipal Act, and other statutes. This brings us to item 8, review and adoption of council minutes. I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved that City Council approves the following minutes as printed. A, the regular council meeting held on January the 21st, 2025. And B, the committee of the whole meeting held on January the 21st, 2025 and February 4th, 2025. Can I get a mover, please? It's Councillor Dawson. Seconded by Councillor Ducharme. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. Takes us to item 9, presentations and delegations. So 9A, and we have Jeff Manners joining us tonight from the public. He's a public health promoter with Northeastern Public Health, and he's here to give us a presentation on the Temiskaming Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. Jeff, it's all yours.
Thank you very much for having me this evening. I'm going to give a brief presentation, rundown of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan for Temiskaming, and we'll talk a little bit about some of our milestones that we've reached, and I'll leave some time for questions at the end. So as part of provincial legislation that was enacted in 2019, municipalities were required to develop and adopt CSWB plans, working in partnership with a multi-sectoral advisory committee comprised of representation from the Police Service Board and other local service providers in health and mental health, education, community and social services, and children and youth services. This approach allows municipalities to take a leadership role in defining and addressing priority risks in the community through proactive, integrated strategies that ensure vulnerable populations receive the help they need from the providers best suited to support them. Temiskaming's CSWB plan was developed in 2021 in response to such legislation. Its development was led by the Temiskaming DSAB on behalf of the 23 municipalities in Temiskaming, plus the municipality of Temiskaming. The plan was developed by a consultant. It was overseen by a local steering committee and supported by a local advisory committee. So the CSWB plan is a district-wide plan that identifies a shared set of priorities and opportunities for action related to community safety and well-being. It is a highly collaborative, living document that is designed to improve the coordination of services, information sharing, advocacy, and partnerships, and ultimately the quality of life of Temiskaming District residents. This is the Ontario model for CSWB planning framework. In the plan, the priority actions fall within the 4 levels of intervention: social development, prevention, risk intervention, and incident response. For all the work that we are doing, we try to address issues where they are occurring while also addressing their root causes. The plan outlines 6 priorities for health and well-being, housing, employment and economy, poverty, community safety, and environment sustainability. For each of these, possible areas for action were also identified. A little over a year ago, about a year and a half ago now, during our launch of the plan, a vote was taken to determine which 3 priority areas would be focused on. The 3 that were chosen were health and well-being, community safety, and housing, which has since developed into housing and homelessness. So the CSWB itself is not an organization, but a collective who are working together to coordinate change in the district. Change that is, in many cases, made by others who may not even be directly involved in the governance structure. To help us along, we've adopted a model called collective impact, which is seen here. We have identified a common agenda for change, which is the CSWB plan. We are in the process of developing shared measurement for data and results. We try to implement or encourage others to implement activities that help the plan move forward. We have a governance structure and continue to develop communications that encourage us all to stay connected and informed. And we have a backbone organization that supports coordination, NEF. After DSAB coordinated the development of the plan, the Temiskaming Health Unit, which is now known as Northeastern Public Health, stepped into the role of backbone agency. This includes hosting myself, the CSWB coordinator, to which all municipalities have contributed. NEF is also hosting a webpage dedicated to the CSWB implementation. So my role includes handling communications and planning tasks, facilitating working groups, monitoring and reporting on the progress of the CSWB plan, and implementing initiatives developed by the work groups. So this slide reflects how we've structured ourselves to support working as a whole community on implementing the priorities of the CSWB. We have our steering committee, working groups that each address a priority area, a coordinator to help keep things organized, and a host agency that offers their support. Over the last year, many milestones and accomplishments have been reached. In addition to having all 24 municipalities commit to the collaborative implementation and having NEF step on as backbone, we launched in September of 2023 and identified our priorities of action. We established our steering committee, developed terms of reference, and have met monthly ever since. We established 3 working groups, developed work plans, and they have met regularly as well. As the coordinator of the plan, I joined the Ontario Municipal Social Services Association's network of CSWB coordinators in Ontario. We developed a partnership with the Temiskaming Foundation to link the 2024 Temiskaming Vital Signs report to the plan. We launched a media release announcing the plan's implementation, created and shared a 6-month progress report with CSWB partners and media. We presented about the plan to various groups, such as the Temiskaming District Road Safety Coalition, the Temiskaming Stay on Your Feet Coalition, and the Temiskaming District Violence Against Women Coordinating Committee, and we continue these presentations today. We developed a logo, we have a Facebook page, and we released the first edition of a quarterly newsletter to update our partners on our progress. We also hosted 2 delegations to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario conference advocating for provincial support for the plan implementation, and we provided a backgrounder to the Rural Ontario Municipal Association to inform their advocacy efforts on this topic. In addition, our many partners have come together to be part of our working groups and have had an impact on reaching our work plan goals. We continue to collaborate and move forward together. Thank you very much for your time. If there are any questions, I can take them now.
Thanks for your presentation, Jeff. Does anybody have any questions for Jeff? Well, Jeff, clearly there's been a lot of work done, within the last year and a half, and I know we've had discussions about the lack of funding, from the province towards not only the implementation of the community safety and well-being plan, but for a number of initiatives, some startup funding and those types of things. But I think the more we get coordinated, the more we get everybody together and the agencies, we'll start to see more and more progress going forward. So thanks again for your presentation tonight, and looking forward to the future updates.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. With that, it brings us to item B. We have Réjean Bellil-Massy, and she's here to talk about Village Noël Temiskaming. Réjean?
Okay.
Since you're much taller than Jeff, that actually moves up if you'd like.
So, merci beaucoup. Thank you for allowing me to make a presentation on Village Noël. I'll be making the presentation along with Mac Armstrong, who is the coordinator of the Cobalt Mining Museum. And I also want to present Anne-Marie Warden, who is the new FEDNAR intern for Village Noël. Awesome. Okay? So both Mac and Anne-Marie are not from this region, but they're newcomers to our region. So we hope this will make them welcome. So the purpose of tonight's presentation is to highlight, no, go back one, please, is to highlight how, and I didn't realize that had I sent it in a PowerPoint presentation, I could have done that, but it's what you get for asking an old lady. So the purpose of tonight's presentation is to highlight how Village Noël benefits the community economically, culturally, and socially, while addressing practical considerations such as funding, safety, and logistics. As you are aware, Le Centre Culturel Artem is the organization behind Village Noël, which produces this event, but in partnership with many partners. Of course, the City of Temiskaming Shores, the Temiskaming Shores and Area Chamber of Commerce, the Temiskaming Métis Council, the Temiskaming First Nations, the New Liskeard BIA, the Riverside Farmers Market, the New Liskeard Agricultural Society, the New Liskeard Curling Club, the New Liskeard Lions Club, and many local in-kind partners. So this is a presentation which could lay out the long-term vision of Village Noël, positioning it as an event that could grow year after year. It showcases how Village Noël could become a lasting holiday tradition that strengthens the city's identity and could potentially evolve into a major regional tourism event. Okay, next slide. So I know you've all got this in your package, so I'll just glide through the presentations. I won't read to it. So Village Noël is certainly a very distinct and cozy, family-friendly event. Why? Because we have a scenic location, and this is the selling point of our Village Noël. It's authentic. It represents French culture, indigenous culture, has a New France theme, because we all know that when people travel, they want a unique experience, and we're trying to provide that for them. We're not up to there, but we're still working on it. And it has a lot of games for children and families, and they can enjoy the outdoor and have fun, and it doesn't cost them an arm and a leg. And we do focus on our local vendors and artisans. But having such an event, represents many challenges. One of which is the weather, of course, because it's an outdoor event. Infrastructure is another challenge. Funding, yes. Volunteers and visitors. So if we go on to the weather, we have freezing cold, we have the wind, we have the sun, we have the rain, and the first year we had a fire. But we went through all of that, so we're good. We know we can do it. So going on to infrastructure. So to make Village Noël a better experience for visitors, we need to provide good infrastructure. And because this increases attendance for everyone, not only for Village Noël, but for the whole community. So Village Noël has provided some infrastructure to the community. It has had installed downtown electrical pedestals, supplemental electrical outlets in the fairgrounds, 26 light posts, a lift for light posts because there was a security issue. We have 3 stage heaters, 5 distinct fire pits, and a lot of gravel for the fairgrounds. And we know that this year, that was in 2024, it was very helpful because before we had the mud, and nobody wants mud. But of course, in New France, they had mud, and they survived. But weather will always be an issue, and we hope that visitors, knowing that it's an outdoor winter event, will dress warmly. So, funding, which has its own challenges, and we all know that. You as a city councillors and as a city know how funding is hard to get. So there are always limited sources of funding. There are always economic constraints, and there's always competition for funding. And in a small town like this, there's a lot of competition. And sponsors always want a better value for the money they are spending, and that we hope that we are doing, but we're not sure. And also, when you're applying for funding, some years the objectives are this, and then the next year they're there, and so you have to be creative on how you're going to work with that. So what are the costs of Village Noël? So for the 2024 event, these are the costs that we incurred, okay? They're pretty simple. I've scrunched it down to that. So it came out to $146,993. And I put minus $15,000 because we had to have 2 specially made food kiosks, and Frog's Breath has agreed to fund these. So that's taken out of the amount, and so it comes out to $131,993. But of that, there's $59,800 in infrastructure, which will not be there next year, okay? So revenue, where did we get the revenue from it? So a lot of funding applications, Heritage Canada, kiosk rentals, sponsorships, South Temiskaming Futures Development Corporation. I made a mistake there. FEDNA, PAFO is the Programme d'appui pour la francophonie de l'Ontario. Trillium Foundation, our raffle sales. Summer student, I got the grant for that. The Artem put in money, and the bingo from Artem also. So it came out to a total of $131,349, and if you subtract that from the expenses, we made a deficit of $644. So I think because of all the funding, we got that deficit. I'm not sure that next year we're going to get as much funding. But if we take out the
Infrastructure.
Yes, the infrastructure costs. we think that we could do a Village Noël for between $75,000 to $90,000. Okay, so that would be the cost if we're slimming down everything. But if you saw, could we go back to the expenses? If you saw, our publicity budget isn't that high. So if we had a good publicity budget, maybe we could attract more people. Anyways, going on to volunteers, that's another challenge. So keeping and securing volunteers and, getting them and keeping them is not an easy task, because you have to motivate them, and you have to make sure that they're well fed and that they can stay warm because you want them to last the whole through the village. So these are all the challenges that you have when you're trying to retain volunteers. Okay, so we go on, and the next challenge is getting the visitors here. So how do we do that? Well, we do that with publicity. But we need to be more effective in our publicity. And this is where we need help. We're really looking for some marketing person to help us promote and market Village Noël, because we know it has a lot of potential. And when Mac will present the statistics, you'll see how we think Village Noël has potential to grow. So, in 2023, we had 9,978 visitors. So as you know, we don't charge any entrance fee because we want to make it a family-friendly event, and we want families and seniors and everyone to come. So if you have an attendance, if you have an entry fee, that dissuades a lot of people. So that's why we're trying to keep it without any entry fee. And anyways, can you imagine putting up a gate around Village Noël in the winter? Not possible, I think. Well, maybe, Mitch? You think? No. Okay. So if there were a person who would be interested in helping us market Village Noël, we would be certainly interested in it. But remember, this is a volunteer thing, okay? So now we'll go on to statistics, and Mac will present this.
All right. Yeah, okay, good. It's catching me. So all of the statistics here, they're all based off of a time period between November 1st and December 1st, so this past year, from the beginning of Village Noël before it even starts to just afterwards. So these statistics are all very relatively new and on point with what we've got. So we did have over 95% new people looking at the website this past year, which is saying something because of the fact that that's a lot of potential people that we could have coming out. The next slide, thank you. So each circle here represents the relative size of the people looking at the website itself. So each circle, the larger it is, the more people there are. And you can see within this too that, well, obviously Temiskaming Shores area is the largest viewed. We're getting hits as far away as Thunder Bay in the west, Quebec City over in the east, and as far down south as Detroit. Overall, the numbers that we are actually getting to, and this is what's really interesting, is that we have an increase in viewings even from certain spots in particular. So over 700% increase in viewings coming from Montreal. Temiskaming Shores even has an increase, almost 400, and Ottawa had almost 400% increases in viewings. So again, what's really interesting about this is that if there is these many number of people from these regions, and this is tracked by IP addresses, so it's pretty standard information that we're able to collect. That does suggest that there is really a potential here for growth, and especially with everything that's going on between the Ontario government's attempts to encourage growth to the northern regions, and the fact that we have the Northlander coming back, and even the fact too that with economic issues going on in the States right now too, there's a lot of people talking about not going to the States and looking for alternatives. I can only see this as a potential growth situation that's going to really impact the region. And so this is all really good numbers to suggest that there is a real need for preparation for this kind of growth. Thank you.
So what's the value in Village Noël? Well, Village Noël brings a significant economic, social, and community building impact to Temiskaming Shores. Now, we know that local businesses would like us to return to downtown, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because of the logistics and the time crunch. So if you were there in the beginning years, what happens is at 6 o'clock, the city shuts down to the main streets, Armstrong and Whitewood, and from 6 till midnight, we place the kiosks, and in the morning, at 8 o'clock, I have a crew coming in. They have to clean out the kiosks because they've been stored for the winter, for the whole summer. We have to set up the signage, we have to put up the Christmas trees, we have to put up the lights, we have to install a lot of infrastructure, plug them in, put the heaters in, and at 1 o'clock the vendors have to come in, and then at 4 they have to be ready. And then at Saturday night, after, we have to take everything down. We have to take the extension cords, the heaters, the lights, the trees, the signage, and be off the street by midnight. Well, I'm not the only old person in Village Noël. Our crew, the youngest one is about 60, and the oldest one is 84. So you can imagine this work and with the weather, no, we can't do it anymore. Plus, when we were doing that downtown, the city was paying overtime. So now when we do it on the fairgrounds, the city is not paying overtime. So it's a lot of savings for the city and for us. So what does Village Noël bring to the city? Well, it's a local business boost, it's job creation, it brings in tourists. Next one. It brings in tourists. But it's also the social impact. It's the community that comes together. It's the friendship that is developed. It's the volunteers, what they get out of it. So that's an important social, cultural impact. And it's an inclusive thing, so everyone is there. We have all the nations there. We have Francophones, we have Anglophones, we have First Nations, we have Métis, and we have a lot of newcomers come to it. So it's really a collective building experience. So it's strengthening local connections, it's volunteering and civic engagement, and it's a sense of belonging because people look forward to having Village Noël. They look forward to, I remember when we had the COVID time, people said, "You're going to do it?" "No, we can't." And then when we canceled in 21, a lot of people were disappointed, but we just couldn't go ahead. We didn't want to take the chance of COVID spreading and Village Noël becoming a spreader for the whole province. So, to summarize, Village Noël fosters economic growth, promotes social inclusivity, enhances community cohesion, making it a valuable event for Temiskaming Shores. So what we're asking, why do we come here? Well, we're asking you to continue to support Village Noël with your financial and your in-kind support, because it's very much needed and appreciated by all of us. And Village Noël would not happen without three important groups of personnel. Obviously, the generous community sponsors, partners, and funders, the city workers under the guidance of Alain Proto and Paul Allaire. And I must tell you how much we appreciate these two guys, because if they weren't there, I know that Mitch came in after that, and if Alain hadn't been there, he couldn't have convinced you to do a lot of stuff. and if Paul hadn't been there, we wouldn't have had the stage. And I was there at the last, move the stage. I don't want it there. Move it. But Paul Valalaire came along and said, yes, Regine, we will do this for you. So, and the volunteers under the guidance of the Village Noël team leaders, of which two of them are here. There's André Brock and Jacqueline Lévesque, who are two devoted volunteers for us. So on behalf of the Village Noël Organizing Committee, we extend our gratitude for the generous financial and in-kind contributions we have received since 2014 from our sponsors and from the City of Temiskaming Shores. This support contributed to making Village Noël a memorable experience for the whole community. Thank you to all of you for your invaluable contributions, and we look forward to continue working with you to make Village Noël even more impactful. Thank you. And if you have any questions, please be free.
Thanks for your presentation, Regine. Does anybody have any questions for Regine? Councillor Wilson?
Merci beaucoup pour la présentation. C'est
Merci.
fantastic. Merci. PAFO.
PAFO.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. What is...
It's a program especially to support Francophone organizations.
So is it part of the Ministry of Francophone Affairs?
Yes.
It is, okay.
Yes.
So you apply for funding
Yes.
to them, and they, and I'm assuming many other Francophone community events around the province are also applying to some funding through that ministry.
Yes, but
Yeah.
you don't always get it.
No. Yeah.
You have to, we work with an agent that is very, how should I say, pointilleuse there. Comment est-ce qu'on dit ça, là? Who's very thorough. Okay, thorough. So you really have to dot your I's and cross out your T's when you're presenting you've got to support everything.
Yeah, so last year you received some funding from
Yes.
PAFO, but have there been any in previous years, have you received funding?
From PAFO, yes, about 3 years ago.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So you see, I received funding from South Temiskaming's Futures Development
Yeah.
Corporation. They provide money for our publicity.
Yeah.
And PAFO and FEDNAV.
Yeah.
FEDNAV did
Yes.
a lot of paying for infrastructure, okay?
Yep.
And paying for the intern, because I had another intern last year, Florence Lançon. Trillium Foundation paid for a lot of gravel and some of the light posts. And that's it.
Yeah.
So, and Heritage Canada pays for their entertainers.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Councillor Ducharme, did you?
So merci beaucoup. It's a beautiful event.
Merci.
That you've put on year after year. I thoroughly enjoy it each year. I think I missed the mud year. I'm not going to lie. And my kids thoroughly enjoy going with their school. So thank you for doing that. I'm just wondering if there are other ways that we can support, and I'm thinking about the Temiskaming Development Corporation, and I think you may be on that or someone, but I'm just wondering if there's other places we may be able to, as we go forward, collaborate just to make sure that we're supporting the event through so I hope that you'll collaborate with staff to see if there are other opportunities for support going forward.
Well,
I don't know, that's not really a question, but
Yeah, I'm always on the lookout for grants.
I don't know that they have grants at this point, but
No,
that
no,
are
but I
available,
know-
but I do
but
think
support,
it's
you know,
some of the tourism, it's
Yeah,
an important part of tourism.
Marketing,
so.
yes, thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions? Well, Regine, I want to say thanks for your presentation.
You're welcome.
But thank you so much for all the volunteer hours that you put in, making our community a better place to live. Village Noël is a great, addition to a number of activities that happen within the community. And I think when you bring people into the community, the stats are there, but the ones that come back,
Yeah.
and if you're talking about growing, anything we can do to support, we will continue, with what we've been doing. but also as it grows, and I know it will grow, because everybody's terrified of you, Roger. And, you know.
Wow.
And Mitch will get there. You know.
Well, you know that I have a few ideas, and I will be bringing them to certain persons.
But thank you so much. Welcome to the two newcomers to our community. Welcome. Thank you so much. If you're looking for permanent housing, we have some new housing that's going to be built in the not so distant future. So,
Well, I'm already looking.
perfect. Thanks. Have a great evening, everyone. Takes us to item 10, correspondence, communication. So 10A, from John Kennedy, the City Clerk, City of Peterborough. It's a resolution of support for Bill 242, Safer Municipalities Act, and that was received for information. Item B, the Earlton Temiskaming Regional Airport Authority, either October 2024, November 2024, and December 2024 financials. That was received for information. Item C, from Holly Salisco, the Administrative Services Assistant for Peterborough County. Read the resolution of support for the proposed U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods. That was received for information. Item D, from the Chair, Bonnie Clark, the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus. And read the resolution of support for EOWC, the support of Canadian and Ontario governments' negotiations with the United States government on trade tariffs. Item E, from the District of Temiskaming Social Services Administration Board. Read the media release for DSAB passes for the 2025 budget and municipal apportionment letter. That was received for information. Item F, from Gillies Custom Containers Limited. Read the application to purchase municipal land. That was referred to the municipal clerk to process in accordance with the disposition of land bylaw number 2015-160. Item G, from Ashley Carter, the Acting Manager for Legislative Services for the Town Clerk, Town of Fort Erie. Read the resolution of support for provincial election health care advocacy. That was received for information. I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved that Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores agrees to deal with communication items 10A through G in accordance with the agenda of references. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Pelletier-Living, seconded by Councillor Graydon. Discussion. Councillor Ducharme.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm hoping that we can bring back, I think it's C from Peterborough County regarding U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods. And just a little bit more information from staff about the impact we foresee on budgets, and looking at how this may influence the city's operations going forward.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we do have a resolution in front of us. All in favor? That motion is carried. Takes us to item 11, Committees of Council, Community and Regional. I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved that the following minutes be accepted for information. A, the minutes from the All Age Friendly Community Committee meeting held on November the 28th, 2024. B, the minutes from the New Liskeard Business Improvement Area Board of Management meeting held on January the 13th, 2025. C, the minutes from the Climate Change Committee meeting held on December the 9th, 2024. D, the minutes from the District of Temiskaming Social Services Administration Board meeting held on December the 18th, 2024. E, the minutes from the Earlton Temiskaming Regional Airport Authority for its meeting on October the 17th, 2024. Item F, minutes from the Northeastern Public Health Board of Health meeting held on January the 1st, 2025. G, the minutes from the Provincial Offences Advisory Committee meeting held on October the 31st, 2024. And H, the minutes from the Temiskaming Health Unit Board of Health meeting held on December the 4th, 2024. Can I get a mover, please? That's Councillor Dawson, seconded by Councillor Ducharme. Discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. This is item 12, reports by members of council. And I'll start with Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to report on the Rural Ontario Municipal Association Conference, January 18th to 22nd. Myself and Councillor Whalen attended, and I just wanted to highlight some of the key points in the conference. As the Zone 9 Director for Roma, one of the regular events at the conference are zone meetings, and that's where municipal politicians and staff from Zone 9, the zone that I represent, are able to come and talk about various issues. And this year the zone meeting was well attended, and it's always interesting at these meetings to hear some of the issues that are coming up. And there were issues, similar issues to many of the things that we face as well. Zone 9 covers basically from Parry Sound in the south up to Hearst in the north and Hearst and Hornpain, and so there are a wide variety of issues that are raised. Some of the ones that were raised this year were obviously some of the concerns around the OPP increases. There are municipalities looking for modified funding formulas for municipalities, difficulty accessing the Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund. Other municipalities still having issues around broadband and cell phone. Difficulty purchasing updated fire apparatus for some of the smaller communities, and also resource concerns. Municipalities who have resource companies in their area, and they don't feel that they're being sort of reimbursed for the fact that these resource companies are in their area, and some kind of a tax change might be useful, particularly for communities that are supporting these resource companies. There were some other issues also, other events, obviously, with the conference. There were a lot of plenary sessions and concurrent sessions, and I've listed them in the package, but the one interesting concurrent session was a provincial offences session, and this kind of leads into one of the issues that we have here at the municipality around provincial offences. So I was honoured to chair a provincial offences session, and the session was very well attended, and there were a significant number of issues around provincial offences across the province, and particularly in small rural municipalities who are administering provincial offences. So there are about 30 what they call small courts in the province, and some of the problems that they're facing are things like fine collection. It's a real problem in the province. There's billions of dollars of outstanding fines. There's more resources needed for collection, and perhaps tax changes so that some of these fines can be collected through the tax system. A significant shortage of justices. It's a slow process to bring new justices into the courts. And the POA data system is a problem. So these are all issues that were brought up by people at this session. They brought up the fact that admin costs used to be 25% of revenue, and now it's 60% of revenue, and that's due to the systemic inefficiency and court delays because there's a lack of justices and just delays in the scheduling. And obviously, community safety and road safety are being negatively impacted due to the fact that there are a lot of these charges that are dropped, penalties that are reduced, et cetera. And also, an interesting point was brought up, was a victim surcharge that's charged on our fines is not being collected because we've got so many outstanding fines across the province. So there's it was a very, very interesting session. We had a speaker from the City of Kawartha Lakes who is with the Municipal Court Managers Association, and he did an excellent job kind of laying out some of the problems. After that, we had a delegation on infrastructure. So I attended our City of Temiskaming Shores delegation with the Ministry of Infrastructure, and it was regarding the housing enabling. It was regarding the. It was. Sorry, I had two delegations. I got them mixed up. So it was regarding the housing enabling water fund that I know Steve Burnett, Sandy, and all the staff put together a great delegation, and I stress the importance of that funding, which we've now received to our community. It was interesting at that delegation, actually, so it was with the parliamentary assistant for the Minister of Infrastructure. The minister doesn't seem to show up to those, but the parliamentary assistant does. And they said to me when I came in, "Oh, did you get your notice that we approved some funding?" And that was for the road work to go with our housing enabling water system fund, right? So we had apparently got an email on the Friday, and I didn't know that, and I said, "Oh, that's great, that's great." But that's not enough, I said. I said we need the rest. So they kind of go together. So it was news to me, but they announced that we'd gotten it. But then it was nice to hear that we also got the others. So again, credit to staff for putting together a great application. I know it was a long process, and it's a lot of hard work, but that money will be well used. And as you had said, Mayor, and some of your quotes around it, it's one of the biggest investments in our community. So it's great. Other items, the rest of the conference had many other topics. We had an opening keynote address from Chantal Hebert, who was very well received. Excellent presentation. Lisa Thompson, Minister of Rural Affairs. There was a homelessness panel, mental health and addictions panel, agricultural development panel. There was lots of issues around that, for Southern Ontario residents. Lots of discussion about the green belt around that one as well, and then just lastly, the other delegation I had was with the for POA, and so Councillor Whalen and I attended our delegation with the Minister of the Attorney General, and Councillor Whalen and I were early, so we actually got a little more time so it was great to have a good discussion, and always great to have Councillor Whalen there because of his excellent contacts, and so we had a good discussion. This is our third delegation with them. We raised the issues of lack of court time, all the things that I talked about earlier, high prosecution costs here, the inability to collect fines, and they discussed some things they're looking at. They were some of the things that they said they were looking at the last delegation as well. So hopefully some of that is moving along. And again, some discussion around tax and collection of fines through the tax system. We also we also mentioned that the Part 3 pilot that we're part of, that again, we repeated what we repeated at the last delegation, that if, things don't change, then we would likely not be, signing on to that pilot project again. I really, again, also have to thank Stephanie, Molly, Shelley, Sandy, and everyone else who was involved in putting the delegation together for having some really good information for the delegation. But it was it's a topic that is slow moving, but it's coming along. But hopefully they can come up with some solutions around that and put us back into a position where we were 20 years ago when POA actually generated some revenue. There was also a Healthy Democracies session from AMO, Association of Municipalities of Ontario. I'll touch on that a little bit later. And then there were, all the regular leaders spoke, leader of the Greens, NDP, and the Liberals. There was a nuclear waste management update, a panel on the innovations in rural health, water and wastewater, all of the topics that are, important to so many municipalities. Some voice? Okay. And so it's always a very interesting conference. Trade show was excellent. Lots of really good discussion at the trade show, and so it's hopefully we make some good contacts at those kind of places, and we get some things done. Although as usual, things take time. So so that's my report on the Roma conference.
Thanks, Councillor Wilson. Yeah, your mic wasn't on. Could you repeat that? Anybody else? Yeah, I just wanted.
They're liking your
I just wanted to say, February 22nd, it's the coldest night of the year. It's a fundraiser for Zach's Crib. The city of Temiskaming Shores does have a team in there, so if anybody's interested and can, make that walk on the 22nd, when we talk about community safety and well-being, Zach's Crib is a critical part of assisting us in supporting the homelessness. So, please, everybody get out and support if they can. Thanks. Anybody else? No. Okay, that takes us to item 13, notice of motions, and I'll turn that back over to Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a notice of motion here that I had some discussions with the clerk regarding town hall meetings. And as I mentioned in my report at Roma, one of the presentations was from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and they have what they call a democracy project, and it's a 4-year initiative to build our democracies. And clearly there's some of our democracies are under pressure right now, and we have we have to do some work to make sure our democracies work, and that we're that they're representing the people that they're supposed to represent. And so this project focuses on attracting more diverse candidates to municipal politics. It supports elected officials to be equity-informed leaders, promotes more respect for people engaged in the democratic process, encourages greater participation in local democracy, and increases and the attempt to increase voter turnout as well, and promoting greater civic engagement and greater awareness of the role of municipal governments. So although it's a provincial initiative, it's important to support it at a local level, and the resolution that I'm about to read will hopefully establish a framework for the city of Temiskaming Shores. And I think these days when we see, there's not a lot we can do, I suppose, from a small municipal perspective, but we have to look at making sure that we make our voice heard around democracy and how it functions in our country, because it really does need to function. So the notice of motion, citizen engagement through town hall events, whereas providing opportunities to direct engagement between elected officials and the community is important to maintain open lines of communication with residents, and whereas town hall events are an effective and inclusive platform for fostering dialogue, gathering feedback, and addressing addressing public concerns in a transparent and accessible manner. And whereas the establishment of an informal atmosphere for community members to engage directly with elected officials would provide a platform for the free exchange of ideas and information and receive feedback on community matters and issues that affect residents. And whereas through the establishment of guidelines and procedures for organizing town hall events would ensure they are effective and beneficial to both elected officials and residents. So be it resolved that Council of the City of Temiskaming Shores directs staff to explore various avenues for organizing town hall events, including identifying potential locations, formats, frequency, and methods for encouraging resident participation, and to develop a policy aimed at facilitating engagement between elected officials and residents. Thank you, and I'd like to thank Logan for her assistance on that. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Wilson, and that'll be on the agenda for our next council meeting. Thank you. Is there any others? Seeing none, takes us to item 14, new business. I do have a resolution of support for South Stormont, the redistribution of portion of land transfer tax and goods and services tax to municipalities. This is a follow-up from an item that we received from the January 21st meeting. I do have a resolution in front of me. Whereas Council for the Township of South Stormont adopted a resolution regarding the redistribution of a portion of land transfer tax and goods and services tax to municipalities at their regular meeting on December the 18th, 2024. And whereas municipalities face growing infrastructure needs, including roads, bridges, public transit, water systems, and other critical services which are essential to community well-being and economic development. And whereas the current sources of municipal revenue, including property taxes and user fees, are insufficient to meet these increasing demands for infrastructure investments, and whereas the province of Ontario currently collects the land transfer tax on property transactions in municipalities across the province, generating significant revenue that is not directly shared with municipalities. And whereas the federal government collects the goods and services tax on property transactions, a portion of which could be directed to municipalities to address local infrastructure needs. And whereas redistributing a portion of the provincial land transfer tax and GST to municipalities would provide a predictable and sustainable source of funding for local infrastructure projects without creating a new tax burden on residents or home buyers. And whereas redistribution of a portion of the existing land transfer tax and GST would allow municipalities to better plan and invest in long-term infrastructure initiatives, supporting local economic growth and improving quality of life for residents. Be it resolved, the Council of the City of Temiskaming Shores hereby supports the Township of South Stormont in their request to the provincial government to redistribute a portion of the land transfer tax collected on property transactions to municipalities, and on their call for the federal government to allocate a percentage of the GST collected on property sales to municipalities, and further that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Peter Bethlenfalvy, the Minister of Finance of Ontario, the Honourable Paul Calandra, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing of Ontario, the Honourable Anthony Rhoda, MPP Nipissing Temiskaming, John Vantoff, MPP Temiskaming Cochrane, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and the Township of South Stormont. Can I get a mover, please? Thanks, Councillor Wilson. That's okay. And a seconder, please. Councillor Dawson. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. Takes us to item B, resolution of support for the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, the financial stability and child welfare. This also will follow up from the January 21st meeting. I do have a resolution in front of me. Whereas the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities Board adopted a resolution regarding financial stability and child welfare, and whereas children's aid societies across Ontario are experiencing significant financial pressures, with the majority of agencies running deficits in the millions, And whereas the Financial Accountability Office has indicated funding for child protection has fallen behind inflation, with the sector missing $70 million compared to previous funding levels. And whereas the current funding model implemented in 2013 has limitations that affect the safety and well-being of children, particularly in northern and remote communities, and whereas the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services spending on child protection services is projected to grow at only 0.7% annually from 2023 to 2024 to the 2028-2029 year, well below inflation. And whereas the child welfare redesign strategy requires enhanced community-based prevention services and improved quality of care, which cannot be achieved without adequate funding. Be it resolved, the Council of the City of Temiskaming Shores hereby supports the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities Board's call on the Government of Ontario to immediately address the funding shortfall in child welfare by providing emergency stabilization funding to children's aid societies. And further, the Council supports FNOM's request that the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services undertake a province-wide service review, including the funding model, the unique challenges of northern and remote communities, the higher operational costs in geographically dispersed regions, sustainable funding for prevention services, implementation of a multi-year funding commitment to allow for proper planning and service delivery, and development of a specific northern strategy for child welfare that recognizes the unique needs and challenges of northern communities. And further, that this resolution be forwarded to the Honourable Michael Parza, Minister of Children, Community and Social Services, leaders of the opposition parties, the Ontario Association of Children's Aid Societies, Association of Native Child and Family Services Agencies of Ontario, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the Rural Ontario Municipal Association, and FNOM. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Graydon, seconded by Councillor Pelletier-Living. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. Takes us to item C, resolution of support for the town of Aylmer, the opposition to provincial legislation on cycling lanes and support for municipal authority and transportation planning. Again, this is a follow-up from our January 21st meeting. I do have a resolution in front of me, whereas Council for the Town of Aylmer adopted a resolution regarding opposition to provincial legislation on cycling lanes and support for municipal authority and transportation planning at their regular meeting on January the 8th, 2025. And whereas the Government of Ontario has announced legislation requiring provincial approval for new cycling lanes, and whereas this legislation would compel municipalities to demonstrate that proposed cycling lanes will not negatively impact vehicle traffic, and whereas cycling infrastructure is crucial for environmental transportation, road safety, and public health, and provincial oversight in this matter represents an unwarranted intrusion into municipal authority. And whereas the Association of Municipalities of Ontario has strongly criticized this proposed legislation as a significant overreach into municipal jurisdiction, and whereas AMO has stated that none of its 444 municipalities were consulted or shown evidence justifying the province's proposed veto power over new bike lanes. Be it resolved, the Council of the City of Temiskaming Shores hereby supports the Town of Aylmer in the following. 1, opposition for the proposed provincial legislation governing bicycle lanes and affirms support for maintaining municipal jurisdiction over cycling infrastructure decisions. 2, endorsement of AMO's position that municipalities are better positioned than the Ministry of Transportation to make decisions about local transportation matters based on local knowledge and community input. And 3, call on the Government of Ontario to withdraw the proposed legislation and respect the established authority of municipalities to make informed decisions about local transportation needs, including the implementation of cycling lanes. And further, that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Pragmeet Sarkaria, Minister of Transportation, John Vantoff, our MPP, Temiskaming Cochrane, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and the Town of Aylmer. Can I get a mover, please? It's Councillor Graydon. seconded by Councillor Wilson. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. Takes us to item D, resolution of support for the Township of Larder Lake, support funding for Hope Air. This is a follow-up from our January 21st meeting. I have a resolution in front of me, whereas Council for the Township of Larder Lake adopted a resolution regarding funding support for Hope Air as their regular meeting on January the 14th, 2025. And whereas the Government of Ontario has made important enhancements to the Northern Health Travel Grant, and whereas these enhancements will provide meaningful support through partial reimbursement of travel expenses for those traveling long distances for medical care, and whereas upfront costs for airfare, accommodations, and other necessities often reach thousands of dollars, with some essential travel expenses continuing to remain ineligible for reimbursement, and whereas Hope Air continues to bridge this gap, complementing the government's policy to reduce barriers of distance and cost and access to health care for Northern Ontario patients. And whereas the demand for these services of Hope Air continues to grow, be it resolved, the Council of the City of Temiskaming Shores hereby supports the Township of Larder Lake's request to the Ministry of Health to consider funding Hope Air in 2025 to support its vital work in assisting residents of Northern Ontario to receive access to the health care they deserve. And further, that the resolution be directed to the Honourable Sylvia Jones, Minister of Health, and circulated to the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Peter Bethenfalvey, the Minister of Finance, the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, the Temiskaming Municipal Association, and the Township of Larder Lake. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Wilson, second by Councillor Ducharme. Discussion?
May I speak to that, Mayor?
Absolutely. $5.
I'm just wondering if the mover and seconder would appreciate a friendly amendment to change the word funding to perhaps support, another word other than actual funding. The reason I ask this is because I had a 15-minute meeting with the Minister of Health that ran into 90 minutes, and it turns out there's quite a few things that residents in Northern Ontario benefit from that no other northern province area gets. I have another meeting coming up with Hope Air to discuss this, so I really think, I strongly believe we should be supporting Hope Air, but to use the word funding right now is a little bit up in the air because of we use examples from other provinces, and other provinces don't have the northern support for health travel that Ontario does. So I just want to be cautionary on using the word funding.
Okay. Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, Councillor Whalen, thanks for that. So are you saying it's the question about the Northern Ontario Travel Grant? Is that the... The province just increased the Northern Ontario Travel Grant, which we greatly appreciate. No other province has a program like that. So if you take the money out of that and apply it to Hope Air, then you're reducing the Northern Ontario Travel Grant, something we've fought for years to get increased. So I just want to be cautious of how the minister sees these resolutions.
Okay, so...
Go.
Councillor Ducharme, go ahead.
I think I can support that amendment because my concern is always that it's important that health services are funded by the provincial government at an equal level for those residents of Northern Ontario. So that should always be the push that we're looking for. I think that's so I definitely can endorse that change to support. It's good work they're doing, but in actual fact, I think we want to encourage them to make sure that all Northerners have equitable access to health care through government programs.
And Councillor Wilson, you're okay with that
Yeah, I
amendment as
support.
well?
Yep.
Okay, is that clear for you? Yeah. Okay, is that clear for everybody? Okay, so we do have a resolution in front of us with the friendly amendment. All in favor? That motion is carried. Takes us to item E, resolution of support for Phenom, expanding full extended producer responsibility for end-of-life management of recycling products to industrial, commercial, and institutional sectors. And I do have a resolution in front of me, whereas under Ontario Regulation 391/21, blue box producers are fully accountable and financially responsible for their products and packaging once they reach their end of life and are disposed of for eligible sources only. And whereas ineligible sources, which producers are not responsible for, including businesses, places of worship, daycares, campgrounds, public-facing, and internal areas of municipal-owned buildings and not-for-profit organizations, such as shelters and food banks. And whereas, should a municipality continue to provide service to the ineligible sources, the municipality will be required to oversee the collection, transportation, and processing of the recycling, assuming 100% of the costs. And whereas these costs will further burden municipalities' finances and potentially take resources away from vital infrastructure projects, be it resolved, the Council of the City of Temiskaming Shores hereby supports the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities' request that the province amend Ontario Regulation 391/21 blue box so that producers are responsible for the end-of-life management of recycling products from all sources, and further that this resolution be forwarded to the Honourable Andrea Kanjan, Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, John Vantoff, MPP Temiskaming Cochrane, AMO, Roma, and Phenom. Can I get a mover, please? Thanks, Councillor Graydon. Second by Councillor Pelche-Levin. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. Takes us to item F, Administrative Report number CS-004-2025, the Municipal Transient Accommodation Tax. I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved, the Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores acknowledges receipt of Administrative Report CS-004-2025. The Council directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to implement a municipal transient accommodation tax for consideration at the February 18th, 2025 regular Council meeting. The Council directs staff to create a municipal transient accommodation tax reserve, and the Council directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to implement an agreement with the Temiskaming Shores Development Corporation for the distribution of 50% of the municipal transient accommodation tax revenue in accordance with the Ontario Regulation 435-17 for consideration at the March 18th, 2025 regular Council meeting. Can I get a mover, please? It's Councillor Wilson. It's going to be Councillor Ducharme. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. Takes us to item G, Administrative Report PPP-005-2025, the appointment of a volunteer firefighter. I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved, the Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores acknowledges receipt of Administrative Report PPP-005-2025, and the Council hereby appoints Xander Loach as volunteer firefighter to the Temiskaming Shores Fire Department in accordance with the recruitment and retention program. Can I get a mover, please? It's Councillor Graydon. Seconded by Councillor Pelche-Levin. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. It takes us to item H, memo number 004-2025-RS, Active Transportation Fund, Housing, Infrastructure, and Communities Canada. I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved, the Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores acknowledges receipt of memo number 004-2025-RS and that council direct staff to submit a funding application to the Active Transportation Fund administered by Housing, Infrastructure and Communities Canada in the amount of $369,700 for the extension of the Stato Trail on Georgina Avenue between Albert Street and Morset Drive. Can I get a mover, please? It's Councillor Wilson. Seconded by Councillor Ducharme. Discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Takes us to item 15, bylaws. I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2025-009, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2024-009, to enter into an agreement with Demora Construction Services, Inc. for the rental of an excavator for spring ditching within the city of Temiskaming Shores. Bylaw number 2025-010, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2024-010 to enter into an agreement with Midwestern Line Striping Limited for the provision of roadway center and edge line painting services for a one-year extension. Bylaw number 2025-011, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2024-011 to enter into an agreement with Miller Paving Limited for the supply of labor, equipment, and material for asphalt patching services at various locations within the city of Temiskaming Shores, and that's a one-year extension. Bylaw number 2025-012, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2025-012 to enter into an agreement with Pollard Distribution, Inc. for the supply, delivery, and application of liquid calcium chloride in the city of Temiskaming Shores. That's a one-year extension. Bylaw number 2025-013, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2024-013 to enter into an agreement with Pedersen Construction 2013 Inc. for the supply of labor, equipment, and material for concrete sidewalk and curb repair services at various locations within the city of Temiskaming Shores. That's a one-year extension. Bylaw number 2025-014, being a bylaw to enter into agreement with Mackey Construction Limited for the installation of 12 LED path lights in Fard Park. Bylaw number 2025-015, being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with M&G Fencing for the installation of 2 ball diamond backstops and 1 outfield fence. Bylaw number 2025-016, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of the Ontario Transfer Payment Agreement through the Community Emergency Preparedness Grant between His Majesty the King and Right of Ontario, as represented by the President of the Treasury Board and the Corporation of the City of Temiskaming Shores. Bylaw number 2025-017, being a bylaw to authorize entering into an agreement with GHD Digital Limited for the purchase of website redesign and upgrades for a 3-year subscription and maintenance of the website. Bylaw number 2025-018, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a 3-year agreement with CJTT 104.5 FM for radio advertising. Bylaw number 2025-019, being a bylaw to establish the municipal transit accommodation tax within the city of Temiskaming Shores. Be hereby introduced and given first, second, and third and final reading, be signed by the mayor and clerk and the corporate seal affixed thereto. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Pelche-Leving, seconded by Councillor Graydon. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. Brings us to item 16, schedule of the meetings. We do have a committee of the whole meeting scheduled for March the 4th, 2025, starting at 3 p.m. And B, we have a regular council meeting scheduled for March the 18th, 2025, starting at 6 p.m. And this takes us to our question and answer period. Do we have any questions? Public? No, seeing none. Brings us to item 18, closed session. I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved, the council agrees to convene in closed session at, I'll say, 7:25 to discuss the following matters. A, the adoption of the January 21st, 2025 closed session minutes, and B, under Section 239 2E of the Municipal Act 2001, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board rate contract upgrade. Can I get a mover, please? It's Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Ducharme. Discussion? All in favor? And we're going into closed session. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.